Well, 300 subscribers. How many of you are about to go away after this video? I'm Anthony, and this is Allow Me to Retort. Thank you guys for tuning into another exciting video today. This one's not going to be so much about news rather than my reaction to everything that transpired yesterday. And let me just get it out of the way. I believe 100% that yesterday was justified. And if you care to know more about that, continue watching. But first, let me tell you to hit that subscribe button. Like this video after you get to the end to it if you enjoy my content. And remember to ring that bell. I don't upload videos on a very set schedule. So if you don't ring the bell, you might miss it when I upload a video and then you'll be behind on the news. So go ahead and ring that bell, like and subscribe. Find me on Parler because I'm banned on Facebook. And actually, I'm probably not going to go back to Facebook anymore. So all the links, email, and all that jazz will be down below in the description. If you want to reach out to me, you can do that. But let's just get into what I have to talk about today, which is what transpired in the Capitol building yesterday. I'm sure you watched the news. A lot of people were watching it live. You saw it unfold. Basically what the media likes to define as a bunch of Trump supporters went and basically sieged. They took over the Capitol and were holding their ground for quite some time, but were far too easily, in my opinion, pushed back. I can't be too critical of them because I wasn't there holding the line, and I really wish I was. I kind of regret canceling my trip. But at the same time, it seems like it was a big cluster, and I'm home safe. Apparently, there was one person killed by the cops. I'll talk about her in a second. 3 other people died in unrelated health issues is what they're saying. But for some reason, despite the fact that the cops are saying they died in unrelated health issues, for some reason, they're still saying 4 people died in Washington, when apparently the 3 other people that died were some other health issues not related to what was happening at the Capitol. So I don't even know why they're saying 4 people died. It's like they're trying so hard to give us Black Lives Matter numbers, because these are numbers we see from their riots. Astounding amounts of people getting hurt and killed and lots of arrests. We see that happening at Black Lives Matter riots. So they're trying to say, oh yeah, well, Trump people went there and they had a riot and 4 people died. But apparently one of them died, and she was shot by the cops just for entering the building. She was completely unarmed. She was shot by some trigger happy cop, but we'll get into that in a second. So there's multiple parts to this. Starting off, why do I think yesterday was justified? Well, because we've tried to do it the other way. First of all, we sat through 4 years of being bullied and belittled, and you've been called deplorable, and you've been called racist, and you've been called Trump-tards and Nazis and white supremacists and all of these things that don't define you, but those are what you've been labeled as. If you're like me, you've had your car vandalized, your car keyed, you've had drinks and milkshakes thrown at you for being someone who has a different opinion. You've been told to shut up and die. You've been told that you're not relevant. If you're black, you've been told you aren't black for having this different opinion. You've been harassed and bullied and beaten down and kicked off of social media and banned and silenced and attacked at every corner for at least 4 years. And you've tried to do the right thing. You've showed up and you voted, and you feel like it was stolen from you. And then you try to do it the legal way. You say, well, here's this video evidence. Here's this, here's that. And they say, oh, that's not enough. It doesn't look like that to us. Well, we asked the guys on the video and they said that's not what happened and that's enough. And nobody's giving you any proof or anything to actually help quell your fear that the election was stolen from you. So you're fed up. Then you show up to vote in a runoff. You campaign again, even when your leader or the leader of the free world is telling you that the thing was stolen. You still show up and you campaign and you get out there and you rally and you do everything you can and you break record numbers to turn up and vote, and you still lose, apparently. And then you say, we're going to have a meeting and we're going to wait. They're going to release the Kraken and we're going to wait for the leaders to do this legally. And it fails again. Everything keeps failing legally. And leaders and these people who you elected to do a job for you, the people who are paid to live very nicely, They live very nicely. These people who are sitting there in the Capitol, they have nice houses and nice cars, things that some of us working class people will never be able to attain because they make sure we can't with their communist and socialist taxes and their policies that are constantly reaching into our pockets to make sure we can never live as comfortably as they currently do. Those people are telling you, get over it, you lost. And then you are supposed to still sit by and do nothing. What did people expect to happen? What happened at the Capitol is the result of people being bullied and having to watch their cities burn and being told that they were racist for over 4 years. It's astounding that this hasn't happened earlier. It was coming, and I completely believe that it was justified. I'm surprised they didn't hold up a greater front, to be honest. I'm very surprised it was ended so swiftly, but I suppose that when you've got highly paid police officers and National Guard members who are willing to sell their country out to defend corrupt politicians who don't have their best interest in mind, I guarantee you none of these people who are out there putting their lives on the line on either side will ever live as comfortably as these elected officials, these officials who we voted in to serve the public, your public servants. Yet you live so much better than the public, and you make sure that the public can never obtain, they can't even come into your chambers, they can't even speak to you or see you face to face. Their issues don't matter to you, their concerns don't matter to you. Look at these numbers here. 34% of the population does not believe that the 2020 election was accurate. 34%, 5% are unsure. And that's between Democrats, Republicans, and independents. This is the whole spectrum here. And I'm sure they've also covered some people who may have different political affiliations and they just group them into there. But 34% of the population, basically 39% of the population, believes that the election was not fair. They don't trust the election results. And when you've got people sitting in the House and sitting in Congress and they don't want to hear 40% of the population, they think 40% of the population's opinion is null and void. That is how you get this. And the media is so quick to blame Donald Trump. Trump incited this violence. Not once did Trump tell people to march on the Capitol. Not once did Trump call for this. In fact, Trump displayed his weakness by telling people who showed up in part for him, but mostly for freedom. These people showed up to do this for freedom. They're not Trump supporters. These were patriots. They showed up to show that they care about this country. They showed up to do that all under the banner of Trump, and he says, go home. It's time to go home. We love you. You did a good job, but go home. Trump is a dead fish, in my opinion. He's been for a long time. I've been saying that. He's been packing his bags and been heading to Mar-a-Lago. We've been getting some crap about, you'll see, January 6th. What did he do January 6th? What happened? We've been getting all these dates. You'll see on this date, this has happened. Release the Kraken. When? We've had bombshell after bombshell evidence supposed to be coming out on all these days. Oh, the bombshell just dropped. Election fraud, prove it. Blah, blah. It's never come out to be anything. Why were we depending on this system to fix the system that's broken? If you truly believe that the election was able to be stolen, then there is no legal system. Not by Trump, not by Pence, not by Ted Cruz, not by any of them. There's no person who is going to use the system to beat the system. If the system is broken, then it's broken. It is time to be torn down and rebuilt if the system is broken. And it truly is. You've got 34 plus the 5, 39% of the population that believes the system is broken and failing. How in the hell are you going to sit back and tell that same 39% of people, well, just wait, the system is going to fix itself. I'm going to use the system to beat the system. Trump's not that smart. Let's be honest. Never thought he was. Trump has always been the vehicle to get us where we want it to go. He's never been the destination. And let's get that straight. And I hope you Patriots are watching this and you're not being upset that I'm saying things that aren't necessarily pro-Trump. After I fly the banner, the Trump flag was on my wall for the longest. And I still have the bumper stickers on my car because I'm not backing down. But the thing is, he was never the goal. He was the vehicle to get us where we wanted to, which should have been freedom. We wanted power to be back in the people's hands. And he seemed like the best bet for the people to get that power back. Now he has failed. It's time to put him to the side. Maybe we can discuss it some other time, but all of that is done. Trump is not our leader. Trump is not the God King. Trump is just Trump. And it is time for us to stop being labeled Trump supporters and being labeled as patriots who want to defend this country at all costs. That's what we should be defined as. Now you're probably sitting there thinking, Anthony, what do you mean defend at all costs? Do you really believe that this violence and this raiding of the Capitol and this insurgent, all this is really necessary? Look at this picture here on the screen. These are Democratic leaders who have all called for civil unrest. They've been calling for this civil unrest and this violence for 4 years. They've said these 4 quotes here, which are completely accurate. You can look each one of them up and figure out who said them. They are each completely accurate, said by them. There needs to be unrest in the streets. This is what they were saying about Trump's policies or about his lack of action and calling Black Lives Matter a terrorist organization. Protesters should not let up. That's your president-elect or vice president-elect. That's Kamala Harris saying protesters should not let up. The protesting should not stop. This is while cities are burning and people are dying. Remember that 9-year-old girl was shot in a Black Lives Matter riot in Atlanta because her mom was trying to get away from Black Lives Matter, and they shot through the back of her car and they killed this little girl. You don't even know her name, but you know George Floyd's name, don't you? This little girl was killed, and Kamala Harris was saying protesters should not let up. They should keep doing what they're doing. Fight the good fight for 4 years. Nancy Pelosi, I just don't know why there aren't any uprising all over the country. Maybe there will be. Nancy Pelosi was calling for uprises all over the country. Maybe there will be. This is when, again, what was it? One weekend, 60 people shot in Chicago. 60 black people killed by other black people. Not a single cop shooting that was, or at least not reported in that video that I covered. Black people killing themselves at alarming rates and rioting in the streets. And Nancy Pelosi says, yeah, they should keep it up. They should keep this uprising. I don't know why there's not more uprisings, right? And Maxine Waters, this one's the most atrocious to me. If you see anyone from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gas station, you get out and you create a crowd and you push back on them and you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere. These are the kind of things that your peaceful Democratic Party was saying for black people to get out there and do. Black people and white people, these were people, they were calling for violence and harassment and terror. Why didn't they resign? Why do you want to impeach Trump when he hasn't called for anything as atrocious as it is? Do you think, could you honestly, if you somehow found my video and you don't agree with my opinions, do you really and truly honestly think anything Trump has said has been as dangerous as these people downright just clearly calling for violence against another group of people? That is exactly what they have been doing here. To show you proof of it, if you simply Google Washington, D.C. on fire, you will find 2 things. You will find a historic moment in 1814 when the British invaded Washington and burned the Capitol, and then you will find the numerous times that Black Lives Matter and Antifa set fire to Washington, D.C. Look at this. All of these pictures here, I Googled Washington, D.C. on fire. All of these pictures here, with the exception of one, are about Black Lives Matter. This one is about the British. Then the next thing here, fires light up Washington, D.C. on the 3rd night of George Floyd protest. This is history. D.C. rioting, Lewitt, protesters. This is talking about George Floyd again. The British, and then again, the British. Again, you find 2 incidents. You don't find anything about Patriots or Trump supporters burning down Washington, D.C. You can't even find the news from yesterday that just happened. You can't find the word burning in Washington, D.C. in the sentence when you look up yesterday's news. You can't find it, but you can look up any Black Lives Matter riot and find that fire and destruction and death follow. Yet we haven't condemned them like we do condemn these supporters of the Constitution, these patriots. Look at what Washington, D.C. looked like. They burned churches. They burned churches. Where were we when they were holding this sign, by any means necessary? Oh, I thought clicking it would take me to the sign. Whoops. That's what I get for clicking stuff. Where were we when this sign was being waved? By any means necessary. And that is a Black woman, by the way. A lot of people like to say, oh, well, there's a lot of white people sneaking in there and they're agitators. It's those white people. They're the agitators. Black people don't burn things. Black people aren't violent like that. Look at this chick's sign. By any means necessary, with 2 flames on it. They will burn, loot, and steal, and it will be fine because Nancy Pelosi and Maxine Waters and Kamala Harris and that bald chick whose name isn't important enough for me to remember, they all called for this. They all asked for this violence. They asked for the civil unrest, and it was okay. But Trump says this election was stolen, and I'm going to fight for your freedoms. And then people decide to take it into their own hands, and then it's all of a sudden Trump's fault. He should be removed from Facebook and Twitter and Instabob or whatever the hell you want to call it, because somehow he caused this violence. He didn't cause this violence. This violence is a response to what your Democratic leaders have been asking for 4 years. 4 years of harassment, 4 years of living in fear, 4 years of being labeled as a racist or a hateful person or a Nazi or something, or some idiot or a deplorable. 4 years. People are tired of it. And that is why you have what happened yesterday. And I believe it's all justified. I believe those people going out there were going to fight for our freedoms. And here's the most important thing that needs to be let known. This isn't to strike terror into the hearts of United States citizens, people who come to have the American dream, people who just want to be left alone and to want to be the pursuit of happiness, right? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We're not trying to strike fear into any one of these people who want any one of those 3 things and don't want to interfere with anybody else's pursuit of those 3 things. This message, this riot, or this insurgent, this was all about the politicians, the people who are supposed to be serving the public and are failing. Nobody is calling for us to make the public feel uncomfortable. Nobody's saying you go to those Bernie Sanders or those Joe Biden supporters' houses and you make them feel uncomfortable. You make them feel unsafe. If you see anybody from Joe Biden's cabinet, you don't let them know that they're not welcome. Nobody's been asking for that. Not until today. We've sat quiet for 4 years while you guys asked for it, but nobody said that. Nobody said you hunt down Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff supporters and you make sure they feel uncomfortable. Nobody said create a list of all these Raphael Warnock and all these Kamala Harris supporters and we need to round them up later and make them pay for what they've done. Nobody's been saying that. We still haven't been saying that. So how are you going to sit here and tell me that Trump and the people who have supported him and the people who support the Constitution and the people who just want to live unencumbered by communism in this country, who want to be left alone to prosper by whatever means that they can without infringing on other people's rights? And that's the key thing here. The Democrats don't seem to care about anybody else's rights besides their own. They say I earned 2 and you earned 10. Well, that's not fair. I need 4 from you so we'll both have 6. Nobody cares. Nobody owes you anything. I'm sorry. If that person decides to give you 4 out of the goodness of their heart because you need 4 and you can't live without 4, then they can do that. But for you to come in and say, I'm sorry, that's just too much of a difference. You have 10 and I have 2. That's unacceptable. We need to make it so that you have to give me your four, or else you're a racist and you're a Nazi and you're a white supremacist and you're an idiot and a deplorable if you don't give me what you've worked so hard to do, what you've worked so hard to accomplish. If you don't give it to me and if you don't share it with everybody else, you are evil and you're a racist. That's ridiculous. And people are tired of hearing it. And people are tired of being forced. Every time you turn around, some new law is passed and the government's expanding its power. People are sick of it. People are tired of every time you wake up in the morning and check the news, some new bill is passed that gives you less privacy. They're in your phone, they're in your pocket, they're in your wallet every time you turn around. Apps that you used to think were secure and encrypted, well, now they've updated their privacy policy to say, well, we can't do that secure encryption stuff anymore. Your messages have to be sold, your data has to be sold, your life has to be sold. And now you're basically punished for not having for services that allow them to sell your data. If you've got internet but you don't have TV, your internet prices are more expensive because they need to know what you watch on TV. They need to know exactly what your eyes are consuming right now so that they can market and they can sell that data and they can advertise to you in a different way. They have to know what you're using. You have to have a credit card almost. They have to know what you're buying and where you're buying it from so that they can advertise and they can market and they can sell it and they can make money off of it. They have to know who you voted for. They have to know how you feel about certain things. They have to give you survey after survey. They have to be all in your life, and we are tired of it. We are tired of our privacy being invaded, and we are tired of the people who we sat down and we cast our ballots for and who we go to work 40 hours a week, some people more, some people less, but you go and you work and you make money and you try to make a living, and then these people who sit in these high chairs and drive these fancy cars and live in these gated communities, they take a portion of what you make for doing nothing, and then they don't even consider you when they pass these bills. They don't give a damn about the people who make the money that makes their money. It's ridiculous. So people are tired of it. That is why what happened yesterday was completely justified. And I applaud any of you guys who stood with me through this entire video because I know it's long and it's a lot of ranting. I wanted to talk very quickly before I go about the woman who was shot in the DC Capitol. The woman who was shot was a veteran of the Air Force. She was from California, apparently. God bless her for being able to even survive in California. But she basically was shot in the neck by some trigger happy cop when a bunch of people were trying to get into the building. As far as I've heard, that cop was not in immediate danger, but for some reason he thought, yes sir, I'll do my job, I'll protect these politicians before I protect the citizens who I'm really sworn to protect. Yes sir. He thought it was much more important for him to point his gun at some patriots and some freedom fighters rather than the people who are sitting there passing the laws and saying, by the way, you're the problem, by the way, defund the police. The police are the problem, aren't they? But he's out here risking his life to defend these people who are hiding under the cabinets or hiding under the tables and the desk. And by the way, isn't that something interesting to see? Last week they were praying to the monotheistic God, Allah, Ra, the God by many names, by many different people, amen, and a freaking woman. But yesterday, they were hiding under the tables, and if you watch some of the videos, they were praying to the one true God. They didn't have time to say Allah and Ra and the God by many names, by many people, amen, and a woman. They were, oh God, let me go back home to my family. Please don't let these people. They were praying to the one only God. Isn't that funny how that all works out? Last week, there were so many different gods, and you didn't want to offend anybody, but when it hits the fan, you know who the real one in control is. Now, you'll be hard pressed to find some examples in the Bible of God directly telling people, especially in the New Testament, of God telling people to react to mistreatment with violence. It doesn't happen. It really doesn't. Or as far as I know. Now, I'm no theologian, so maybe you can correct me. Maybe there's some time where they say, whoever taketh this in trespass against you, you get your sword and you run it through of them. I don't know. I'm sure it doesn't happen. But what I will say is I don't think God ever intended for his followers to be the victims unnecessarily. I don't think. No man knows the time or the hour. I don't think that we're necessarily in the end times. And even if we are in the end times, that could last many, many lifetimes. for us, because we're talking about divine time here, and we're trying to put it into our perspective. We have no idea what's really happening. We don't know. The end times could be many years. The end times could be a 200-year period or something like that. We don't know. We've got a few markers of when things start and time things end, but to be honest, no man knows the time or the hour. So I don't necessarily know if we're in the time of biblical times where we're going to be persecuted and round up and ridiculed and have to face that moment where it's either you deny God or you accept the mark and all of that stuff. I don't know if we're there yet, but what I do believe, I truly believe with every fiber of my being, is that now is not the time to lay down and let hell in, because that is what's coming. Hell is coming. And to sit down and be complacent while evil spreads and propagates itself through the nation is not right. It can't happen. 34% of the population doesn't believe it happened. And that's right. I am saying Joe Biden is evil because I believe he is. I believe he's a liar. I believe his family is crooked. I believe they've been working in politics for far too long. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Trump is the hero. I don't think Trump is the last Trump that you read about in the Bible. I don't think that he is anything handpicked by God to lead us into divine whatever. I don't think that of Trump. I don't think he is the hero. I don't think he is the leader. But I do think Joe Biden is the deceiver. I think Joe Biden and Obama have been great tickets of division. I think Trump did help drive forward the division, but that's because the sides were already picked. The lines were already drawn in the sand. And that started under Obama, was when the lines were drawn in the sand and people had picked sides already. Trump did not divide us. He inherited a divided country. And Joe Biden is about to inherit a divided country. And God help him, because I think it's going to become divided in many different ways. Maybe physically, maybe there will be walls built and borders drawn and redrawn or whatever. Who knows? But this is only the beginning. January 20th, to me, that's the real date to watch. And that's not because Trump says so. I don't truly care what Trump says at this point. He's failed us. Unless he comes out himself on January 20th and says, I need backup, I need reinforcements, and it's time to do X, Y, and Z. Other than that, like I said, he's a dead fish. But let me know, what do you guys think? Am I right to vehemently support what happened yesterday and support those people who are on the ground fighting and risking their lives for freedom of the American people, to have the power handed back to the American people? This is the country for the people. We, the people, in order to form a more perfect union. We, the people, not Pelosi, not Trump, not Biden. This isn't their country. It's not. They inhabit this country, but they are just a small part of it, just like me and you, just like the 300 million people that inhabit this country. So realize, when 30% of America, almost 40% of America is unsure about the results of the election, that's over 100 million people. 100 million people throughout the country are not trusting in this election. 100 million people is more than enough to start another country, I'll tell you that. It's more than enough to have an uprising. It's more than enough to have a revolution. 100 million people are sick of the BS. And I'm one of them. I'm Anthony, and this is Allow Me to Retort.